I'm not the type of guy who does peacocking, showing all his strength. Not at all. Because peacocks stunt on females because they cannot fly like they wish they could. It seems that people always want to stunt on folks, flex on folks, style and profile, keeping up with the Joneses, call it whatever you want. Peacocking can ruin your life and sadly enough, even your soul. The Bible told us, strive not to be rich, to not be covetous, and to be modest. But in this game of life, status is important because it makes us feel important. If everyone around you takes the bus, it feels good to be in your 96 Camry. However, if you go downtown and you see people rolling in Mercedes S580, you don't feel so good about yourself anymore. And the reason why is status. Some people like to feel better than other people. They don't truly love theirs. They love that people would love to have theirs. In this instance, they would feel like doing something bold to get money, to go from a 96 to a 2025. And some of them did. Most of them took a fat L, either by losing their freedom, life, or soul. And when it comes to the some of them that won, they only won by realizing their intrinsic value. They say there's always a word of wisdom in everybody, and sometimes it comes from the most unlikely places. If you allow me to show you one.
Is it hard to be fresh if you don't have money, or can you still pull it off?
See, when I ain't had no money, I still had sauce.
Mm-hmm.
See, if you don't got no sauce, then you're lost.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also get lost in the sauce.
Here, the sauce is your confidence in yourself. But if you get overconfident without the evidence of competence, you will get lost in the sauce. In the book Ego is the Enemy, the author Ryan Holiday wrote, impressing people is utterly different from being truly impressive. And this stuck to me. Why do we have this thing in us that wants to seem impressive to other people who don't really care about us? Brothers and sisters, have you found your intrinsic value? Instead of working towards what people wish you could be, are you working towards being who you're supposed to be? Don't sell yourself short. This life is to be lived in the fullest because it in itself is already short. Why would you sell your soul when it is priceless? You know your talents, so why are you not using them? Don't you realize? When you don't use them, it is a sin, just as if you use them to serve the devil. We always have to keep Jesus Christ's words in mind. Never forget about the parable of talents. The master, which is God, gives his servant, which are us, money. One gets 5, another 2, and the last one, 1, each according to their own ability. The first one trade with it and brings 5 more. The second one made 2 more, and the last one dug and put it in the dirt. So when the master came, he said, "Well done, my good faithful servant," directly to those who put their talent to use, and called the last one wicked and slothful, and cast him in outer darkness. In this parable, we speak about money, but it is a parable of what you are going to do with what God gave you. God gave you life and unique abilities, and you must use them to glorify Him. Your intrinsic value is what God gave you. Like His word said, can the clay tell the potter what to be? Can the clay tell the potter what to be? What we call the one with one talent is a fool, but foolishness is in all of us, so we have to be careful. I've seen other people go totally broke because they wanted to flex on people, buying unnecessary expensive things they could not afford because they saw other people do better. And it could have happened to me. The only reason why it didn't happen was because God put in me a calculating mind. In everything I do, I compute. I intake all the information I can and make sure everything adds up. So let's go back to memory lane. We saw what happened, but did we learn from it? Of course not. Look at what happened in the last 5 years. People had the income to afford $400,000 houses, but because the interest was so low, they qualify for houses worth 700,000. That's what we call overextending yourself. Everything was good, the payments were low, houses were selling, bankers and realtors were making money. Unfortunately, once they had to renew their mortgages, they saw the rates go from 1.7% to 5%, and their mortgage payment more than doubled. And this is so tragic. Most people have no knowledge about the financial system, and they got even more bold and chose a variable rate, and in the end could only afford to pay the interest. Imagine paying $2,000 per month on your new mortgage. $750 goes to the interest, $1,250 goes to the principal. And just like that, in 2 years, you end up with a $3,500 mortgage payment. And this is only for the interest. And the worst part is they have to eat this for 3 more years because they have to wait until they can renew their term. All because they wanted the style and profile, show folks how bigger their backyard was, and show how much more surface they had to clean weekly. Because it comes down to this. Can you believe this situation? Someone calls you because the payments are too high. Because of it, they can't feed their children. Their marriage is falling apart because they both have to work overtime or second jobs to make ends meet. The wife is stressed out, the husband is stressed out, and they are both stressing each other out. As they tell you this, they are crying their eyes out. But the only thing you can tell them is, I'll pray for you. Then you think to yourself, if only they purchased the house they could afford and not the one they qualified for, they could have saved some money or made more lump sum payments on their principal. So even if the rates would have gone up, the payments would not have shattered them. Not everybody has the knowledge of the financial system, how interest works and everything works. The sad thing in all of this is that they put themselves in this situation. This is what we call an unforced error. And we all are guilty of this. The magnitude may differ, but we are all guilty of it. As Christians, having God on our side, we have the blessing to be able to make better decisions. Before we do something life-changing, we can pray on it. We can ask God for guidance. We can use our God-given wisdom. And even better than this, we can read our Bible. Most of the world's wise men's quotes that are truly wise are nothing more than the word of wisdom I already read in the Bible, or will discover later on. Jesus Christ told us to search the scriptures because in them you will find life, and it is true. The story of the talents tells you about financial wisdom and how God-given talents are to be used. Keep in mind to always look at the pros and cons because the regrets of not doing is worse than doing, but nothing is worse than I could have known. Not I should have known, but I could have known. When the Bible tells us, strive not to be rich, it is a commandment. In the book, Psychology of Money, Morgan Housel said, doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are and a lot to do with how you behave. This book can be simplified, and that simple phrase can be explained in the wisdom of the parable of talents. And he won awards for this book. People praised him as if he was revolutionary. Unfortunately, if you spoke to these people about Jesus Christ, they would hate you. What I'm trying to say about the commandments of not striving to be rich, it is a game you cannot win. Pride and ego are the only prizes, and we know what comes before the fall. So why would you seize it? How can you fly if you don't shed the weight of your pride and ego? Both of your wings need to be free to glide. Look at a peacock, fly versus a dove, and ask yourself, which team would you prefer to be part of? I realized when I was in the ego and pride rat race, I often found myself wanting what someone else had. I realized I could not simply separate the person from the specific thing because they are a whole. Whenever you see yourself doing this, you need to tell yourself, I would erase myself, my memories, my experiences, good and bad, my relationships, my emotions, everything I felt. I want to erase my whole being just to be transferred into that person's life. Would you ever tell yourself this? Would you like to lose all the people in your life that you love for this person's life? Not even knowing if it's just because this is exactly what you're doing. My brothers and sisters, you are priceless, even with all your flaws. You are unique, never forget that. Your flaws might be your strengths or your weaknesses. You need to balance them. At least learn to do it. Never stoop so low that you would erase yourself to be someone else. Never assume that your best years are not in front of you. If you ever think you can't even taste the goodness of life, live for the next laugh. Yes, live for the next laugh. God told us He never saw the righteous forsaken. So let's live this life to the fullest to please Him. Take all the blessings He has in store for you and leave nothing behind. When it comes to money, you don't have to do anything crazy that would pull yourself in the Fed. If you're only making crumbs, stack them up to make some bread. I remember when I was younger, I saw my friends starting to buy their first car while I was still taking the bus. I was saving money for a specific car, but I got jealous, so I told myself I would buy a reliable car, but faster and more luxurious than them. After my calculations, I chose the Acura TL. When I pulled up on them, I was the man for about 1 year, until a friend of mine pulled in a Range Rover Sport of the Year. That car looked so clean, the infotainment, everything. Man, everything looked good, and I was so happy for him. But the next summer, I felt lower than him because I could not keep up with him, my big brother and his friend, on the highway anymore. I felt left behind. But if I had purchased a high-end car like them, I would have gone broke for sure. So I searched. I told myself I could have something less luxurious and less prestigious with the potential to be faster than everyone. So I settled for an Audi S4 B8. It was lightweight. I tuned it, changed the brakes, and I was making more than 478 horsepower. At the TCU tune, my car was shifting faster than a Lamborghini. I was finally the fastest guy in the neighborhood. And do you know what happened? My friends, my brother, and all his friends were happy for me, like I expected them to be. Yet, I was confused, so I meditated on it. I realized I was in a competition with him in my head, but never knew it. I knew this friend since I was 7 years old. He always said he wanted a Range Rover Sport. Unlike me, he was a competition with himself. My brother bought his dream car too, his friends too. Then it dawned on me. I always wanted a fast car, but my dream car was an E46 M. But because I was looking to have the fastest car and a faster car than everybody right now, I didn't buy the car I dreamed since I was a kid. Sadly, today those cars are simply overpriced, so I will probably never buy one. This was an unforced error because of my ego and pride. I lived 50% of one of my dreams. When God told us to stay focused on our own journey, it is really for our own good. Without this mindset, you will never win. My ego and my lack of patience took me over, but I didn't know it yet. Ryan Holiday said in Ego is the Enemy, those who have subdued their ego understand that it doesn't degrade you when others treat you poorly. It degrades them. After 2 years with that car, I downsized to an Honda Accord. During the first 3 months, I felt my ego telling me that buying this car was a stupid idea and everyone would laugh at me. But after those 3 months, I started loving that car more than my Audi. Everyone was asking me if I missed it. And when I told them no, they could not believe it. But it was true. I truly preferred my Honda over my Audi. It was worse in every shape or form, but I preferred it with all its flaws. I realized what was happening while reading the book Psychology of Money. It is not worth paying top dollars for something that you don't truly want. Paying super cheap for a Honda versus paying high cost for an Audi that is not an E46 M3 that I truly wanted and dreamed of was the thing that was breaking my psyche. To tell you, I came to realize this about 2 years ago. Everything happened more than 6 years ago. Can you realize how many mistakes and unforced errors I did during those 4 years? The only thing I can tell you is that I made none during those last 2 years, and I thank God for that. I grew from that and learned from it. And because of this, right now, I'm a better man. I'm still working towards my patience, but I'm getting there. I learned one of the most valuable lessons in life. I will not pay for something that is not exactly what I want. And that is for absolutely everything in life. If there's one thing that can help you not fall into those pitfalls, is your talents. One of mine, like I said, is maths. In everything I do, there's maths. If you ask my girlfriend, every time she tells me a story or something that happened, I'm always calculating to find out why something happened or is happening. So when nothing adds up, I always tell her we need to stop subtracting. When I meditate and do calculations, I ask myself, why couldn't I get ahead when everything I did was sound? Yet nothing was adding up. I started subtracting everything, and I came to realize my ego was feeding my pride, which kept festering inside of me, making me do micro behaviors that kept compounding until it started nullifying everything good that I was doing in a macro. And you know what Einstein said about compounding interest? It is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it, and he who doesn't pays it. And I paid for it dearly. I'm great at math, but there's always something to learn. So I must be humble before getting ahead of myself. Your talents protect you from your ego. If you're not good at something, allow yourself with someone who's better than you at it. But how could you do this when you're too busy, when you're so full of yourself? Nobody wants to be next to someone who thinks they are better than them or always flaunts it in their face. And that's the truth of it. They can see how you fly. You're not fooling anyone. An engineer can build the blueprint for a plane, but he cannot build it without a mechanic, and both cannot fly in it without a pilot. Since we only see the pilot in the final product, he is the one with the most status, but the engineer is the one who makes more and gives the job opportunity to the mechanic and the pilot. Without those two, his dream cannot come true. They are all intertwined, and together they can fly. Engineers keep surprising us in every facet of their work because we don't know about them. When Apple came out with the M-chip series, they changed the way we see computers once again after bringing up the iPhone to life. When Nvidia became the top Fortune 500 company, we heard about the CEOs. We heard about ChatGPT, Microsoft. But how many of you knew about the engineer who made it possible and who became millionaires? Most successful people are people you never heard of. They want it that way. It keeps them sober. It helps them do their job. So brethren and sisters, how can you fly?